Hello, personal finance class. So we are going to wrap up chapter 11 today, and we're going to talk about other types of credit, risky types of credit. So this might be the last video that you seniors watch. So and I'm glad we at least got to cover this. It is very important. This is how, well, so it's two major things. How to responsibly use your credit cards, and second, what are some other types of credit arrangements that you want to avoid. So let's get right into it. So these are parts 3 and 4 of chapter 11, and the first major part is how can you use credit cards wisely? By the end of this video, you're going to be able to explain back to me exactly how you use credit cards wisely and how not to use them. Secondly, what steps can you take? What methods are available to you if you find yourself in too much debt? I've done it. I've told you guys, at one point I found myself with about $12,000 in credit card debt. I made my way out of it, but it wasn't good, and it wasn't easy, and it wasn't fun. So what can you do if you find yourself in too much debt? And third, what are other risky credit arrangements that you should avoid? So let's understand what they are and then know that you should avoid them. Okay, so first of all, tips for using credit cards wisely, all right? So only purchase things, I say this very clearly, only use your credit card if you know you're going to be able to pay it off at the end of that month, within about 20 days, 20 to 30 days at the most. Don't just take a credit card and think of it as, a loan and you can pay it back whenever you want to. Use it only if you know you can afford what you're buying, okay? It's not, carte blanche to buy whatever you want regardless of the cost. You still have a budget. You still need to stay within it. Follow your budget. Understand how much money's coming in, how much is going out. Use credit cards. They're fine. They're fine if they're used wisely, but only use them to spend up to that limit that you set for yourself each month. And the good thing about credit cards is, like we talked about before, you can log in and see what you're spending on and how much you're spending. So in one sense, it could be helpful to use a credit card. You don't just have, a wad of cash sitting in your wallet, and then before you know it, it's gone and you have no idea what you spent it on. But follow your budget. Follow your budget. You should use your credit cards and the credit you have available to you the same way you use cash, all right? So you have a certain amount set in your budget for, say, entertainment or meals, things like that. Stay within them. Don't just take a credit card and say, oh, I've got a $500 limit, $1,000 limit, and just spend it. You're going to get yourself into a lot of trouble doing that. I did. So pay your credit card bills first and as soon as possible. Now, this is there's two ways to think about this advice. At the end of each month, prioritize your credit card bills. I'm not saying pay it before you pay, utilities, and then don't pay your utilities. That's not smart. You have to pay that stuff first. But thinking from more of a long-term debt perspective, pay those down first. So if you have extra money at the end of the month and you have credit card debt, pay that first. Don't put extra money towards something else, all right? Don't just, spend your extra cash on something else. Pay that first, all right? It's high APR and it's very bad to maintain that debt. Always pay off your higher APR debt before your lower APR debt. That means your APR, of course, is your annual percentage rate. So that credit is costing you a lot of money if it has a high APR. So pay that stuff down. I would always recommend that you use your savings before you carry a balance. If you do get into yourself a little bit of trouble and you overextend yourself and you blow your budget for a month, use your savings. Pay that down, all right? Don't sit with high APR credit, and let that sit over month and pay a high APR on it. Don't do it. Use your savings, then don't blow your budget next month, and then build your savings back up. All right, so second part. If you do experience credit card debt problems, what can you do? What options do you have? So number one, first and foremost, stop using them. All right. This comes back to know thyself. All right. I had to do this. I had to basically take them out of my wallet and get them away from myself because I was using them unwisely. Stop using them. That's the first step. You find yourself with too much debt, stop using the credit cards. You're not going to get yourself out of a hole by, taking one shovelful and then taking another shovelful and putting it back on yourself. If you're in too much debt, stop using your credit card. It's that simple. Step one, stop using them. Obviously, some people are like this, and it's not a shot to you and who you are. As I said, I did it. Maybe you're just not responsible enough to carry a credit card without using it unwisely. I had that problem. As I said, you can't dig yourself out of a hole while you're adding more dirt. Another thing you can do is actually negotiate new terms. One thing that happened to me, when I had my credit card, I was late on a couple of payments. And as I mentioned before, when you do that, your credit card company is going to jack up your APR. So after a few months, I made my payments. I made them on time. I called them and I negotiated my APR back down. They're willing to do that. So you can always negotiate new terms. Call your credit card company and give it a shot. And if you find yourself in more trouble than just, missing, late on a couple payments here and there and negotiating your APR, if you have too much debt, you can call them and negotiate a repayment plan. And a lot of times you can do that at a much lower rate. Yep. So they'll often lower your rate, work out repayment plans. I mean, they're interested in getting their money back, first and foremost. If you call them and say, hey, I'm in trouble and I don't know if I'm able to pay you, what they don't want you to, declare bankruptcy. They don't want you to not be able to pay them. It's in their best interest to say, okay, you know what, fine, we'll tear up this credit card. We'll shut it down. You have to pay me just a little bit per month until we get it all back. They're willing to do that because they want to get paid. They want their money. A third option is debt consolidation. So you can always seek a third-party loan. I know this kind of sounds like you're putting more dirt onto yourself again, but sometimes it's best to get a third-party loan, which is at a lower APR, and then combine other sources of debt and just pay off one payment. And it can be a lot lower payment so you can handle it, and you actually work toward getting yourself out of debt. But of course, it's contingent on following step one, which is stop using your credit card. All right. Don't just take out another loan, pay off your credit card debt, then keep using your credit cards. People do that all the time. It's not smart. You're going to get yourself into more and more trouble. So, of course, step one, stop using them. Consolidate your debt. There's lenders such as, what's it called? Lending Tree, I think it's called. It's escaping me right now. But there are ways you can apply for loans to consolidate and extend that loan out so you have lower payments. Remember, we talked about that with car loans. And it's at a lower APR, so it'll be best for you. But of course, stop using your credit cards. A lot of times you'll need to provide collateral for that type of loan. And you guys know what collateral is. I won't beat that up. And then the last option, this really shouldn't even be considered an option, but bankruptcy is really the last step. If you've got way too much debt, you can't make your payments on stuff, maybe your income is lost, bankruptcy is really not a great option. It destroys your life for quite a while. It's not a whimsical, I'll just declare bankruptcy. No. I mean, bankruptcy it's a court process. You'll go to court and the judge will tell you everything that you have to sell and what you're going to owe to who, and it destroys your entire life. You'll have nothing left. It's terrible. Don't get yourself to this step. It destroys your credit for 7 years. It'll sit on your credit report and lenders will not touch you. They don't want to lend you money. You can't buy a car. You can't get another credit card. It's not great. I've, of course, never gone through it myself, but it's not good. All right, it's a very, very bad option, and you got to be in really rough shape. And it could also be very costly. I mean, you won't have your baseball card collection. You're gonna have to sell that, everything to your name. You will sell. You will pay back your creditors, your debtors rather, as much as possible, and you're left with nothing. And you start over with bad credit. Not fun. All right, so what are some other risky credit arrangements that you may come across in your life? And I'll tell you about them now so you can avoid them. So I'll start with this caveat. If you find yourself attracted to any of these or approaching any of these, something's gone wrong and you need to reconsider your life choices. And I say that very, very seriously. If you're thinking about doing these things, you're in trouble. All right. So the first one is payday lending. Payday lending is horrible, but a lot of people live this lifestyle of getting loans against their future income and then having to take that future income, pay back what they borrowed last week, take out another loan. It is a really terrible, costly cycle that will potentially destroy your financial well-being. So what a payday loan is basically is you go to a lender that provides you an extremely, I'm talking often in the hundreds of percents when you take it and stretch it out and make it into an APR. Like if you have basically payday loan is you're saying, okay, here's a couple of my paychecks. I make $400 a week. I need to borrow next month's or next week's paycheck today. And they will give you $350. And then you have to come in and give them your $400 check next week. So that $50, I mean, if you're in a really, really tough place, some people, it's worth it. I mean, this is what addicts do. This is what, people with substance abuse problems do. They need that money right now for whatever it is, and they're willing to pay that extremely high interest rate in order to get it. And of course, lenders don't tell you, this is what your interest rate's going to be. And if they do, I mean, it's in the fine print. I think they actually have to disclose that. But people are in such great need are willing to do it. And that might be their only option to get money now if they really need it. But it becomes a cycle. Then you're borrowing next week against the next paycheck. And then you pay that one back and you're borrowing again and again and again and again. It's a horrible, horrible situation to be in. So again, if you're ever thinking about doing it, something's gone wrong and you need to take a step back and reconsider what your life has become and these choices that you're making. Yeah, so essentially, payday lending is you have to come in and you will actually write them a check. You'll write them a personal check and it'll say, all right, it's, $400 and it's dated next week. All right. And they will give you a lower amount as you say, all right, here's my $400. I'll give you a check for $400. You can cash that next week. You give me $350 right now. And that's essentially the way it works. And then they cash that check the next week. And if it doesn't cash out, if it bounces, as they call, you're in big trouble. These are the type of lenders that will visit your house. I'll leave it at that. Yep. So again, rates can be in excess of several 100%. Don't do this. All right. So another thing, I've noticed that this has changed a little bit, and maybe they're not quite as bad as they used to be, but a tax refund loan. A tax refund loan is basically when someone, we did our taxes in this class. I think a lot of you took away from that you never want to do it again. I don't blame you. Get a professional to do it, whatever. Even when you use, why can't I think? TurboTax. Even TurboTax is a button you can click and says, I will give you an instant refund. A lot of them have actually come down and they're not charging fees for this, but a lot of them still do. So, and if they do, the APR works out to be pretty astronomical and it's not worth it. So if you're going to get $1,000 back in taxes, they say, oh, well, we'll give you an instant refund of $950. So essentially, instead of waiting a few weeks, you get $50 less right now. And from an APR perspective, when you average that out, it's a very high APR, and it's a bad loan. Basically, it's a bad short-term loan for you. So no need. Just wait a few weeks and get the full amount. Right? Don't pay someone else that much money to give you a short-term loan. It's essentially the same as a payday loan. It is the way that it's set up. All right, another arrangement are pawn shops. So before payday lenders became popular, there were pawn shops, all right? And there still are pawn shops, but basically it's a little bit different. It's essentially a collateralized loan. So with a pawn shop, they basically take possession of something that you own and they pay you for it. So like you can bring in, like I said, a baseball card collection, or bring in, a piece of jewelry, or, things like that. Something that has value. You can bring in, a bicycle, a stereo, and they will pay you for it. And basically, if you don't come back and buy it back from them at a premium, they'll sell it. And they are not going to pay you a whole lot for that item because they're in the business of making money. They might give you, $150 for your $300 stereo. And the agreement is you're going to come in 30 days and you're going to give him back whatever, $175, $200 for it. That's how they make money. If you don't show up, they're going to sell it. So yes, if you don't pay it back within the set time range, they sell the item. And that's how they make money. So those are risky arrangements that you want to avoid, all right? You lose doing all these things, all right? All right, so objectives. Let's talk about them. So you tell me, how can you use credit cards wisely? What are the rules that we talked about? Second, what options do you have if you find yourself in too much debt? What can you then do? And finally, what are those other risky credit arrangements that you should avoid? All right, guys. Seniors, it was great having you in class this year for the first 3 quarters. I wish you all the best. And if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot me an email. Thanks, guys. Bye.